Why?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Why would I call somebody to criticize them for saying I dope and then say we all dope? That's ridiculous.
Have you ever, well, let me ask you this way. This is the 2001 time period. Was the use of performance-enhancing drugs, to your knowledge, by other cyclists fairly common in 99 or 2000? If you know.
Well, yeah, and cycling was rocked in 1998 by Festina, so that, I think if anybody didn't understand that there was some sort of a doping problem with some teams in cycling after 1998, then they had their head in the ground.
Have you said things to people like Mr. Lamont or others that lots of cyclists dope as an indictment or a comment on others but not yourself, and Mr. Lamont has misinterpreted that as an admission by yourself?
Well, I would not say that, because I don't live with, train with, sleep with, hang out with lots of other cyclists, so I couldn't say that. That would be unfair.
Okay. So his statement that he attributes to you, which he describes an admission by you, is completely untrue?
Completely untrue.
Made up by him?
100% made up.
What about his statement he attributed to you that you told him you could get 10 people to sign statements or affidavits that he doped?
No. I don't, maybe that's possible. I don't think I could. I'm not interested in that, so why would I have said that?
Okay. So that part is made up by Mr. Lamont as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you know why Mr. Lamont would say these things about you?
You know, the most interesting part of that conversation, and this is going to sound incredibly juvenile, but I said, dude, I thought we were friends, you know, we'd been good with each other, and he continued to scream and say, hey, friends? What do you mean friends? You didn't even invite me to the Ride for the Roses this year. I'm like, wait a minute. Is that the issue here? I said, well, we didn't invite you because last year you were drunk the whole time. You set up competing autograph sessions when we were trying to do good things for the fight against cancer. So we invited you to the gala when we were going to introduce everybody that was there, Miguel Indurain, Eddie Merckx, the greatest of all time. You showed up literally 60 seconds before you were going to be introduced. Of course we didn't invite you back. You got people expecting you to be there, expecting you to contribute to the cause, and we can't rely on you? No. Of course not. That offended him. But that was the truth.
What one just side note, you mentioned Eddie Merckx. I've read in some article somewhere that it was Eddie Merckx who actually introduced you to or got Dr. Ferrari to see you. Is that true?
I think Eddie knew. Obviously, Eddie's a close friend, and yeah, if Eddie's known him for a long time, I don't know.
Well, you said you met him in Southern California, and I just wondered if it was Eddie Merckx that introduced you, or if it was Eddie Merckx that suggested that Ferrari should see you.
I don't recall.
You don't recall that? Okay. So, was there any discussion about whether or not Mr. Lamont had doped in connection with his professional cycling career?
I think, you know, I reminded that, you know, there was a fairly well circulated report that came out of Italy. I don't know when it came out, called the Donati Report, which was authored by Sandro Donati. They chronicled, I think, doping in sport, maybe just doping in cycling, but Greg was referenced in there with his involvement with Dr. Van Mol. And I reminded him of that. Of course, he didn't know about that, didn't want to know about it. But then he took that as a direct accusation.
What else do you recall being discussed in this phone call, other than what you've told me?
Oh, he said the sport is full of crooks and thieves and liars and cheats and frauds, and literally screaming at the top of his lungs. And then I just said, well, yeah. And it's made you everything you are today, Greg. He didn't like that either.
Do you know if anyone from Trek Bicycle later contacted Mr. Lamont about his comments that he'd made publicly?
I have no idea.
Did anyone tell you that people from Trek were going to contact him?
Not the. I mean, I can imagine they did. He's a track athlete, in effect.
But was not. If it was done, it was not with your knowledge, consent, or
no. Only the whole world knew I wasn't happy about those comments. Nobody would have been happy about them. That's the extent of it.
What is it about his comments that were so upsetting to you?
Well, let me see. Being called potentially the biggest fraud in the history of sport, that was a little bit upsetting.
But didn't he say if you in fact were doping, you would be the biggest fraud?
Well, the headline is what it is. So it's not Greg's place. He has no knowledge. He has no information. He has no incentive to do that. That's defamatory and unnecessary.
Well, for example, like some of Dr. Ferrari's public statements, or you would agree, are equally offensive to an athlete such as yourself, aren't they?
Such as
his famous comment about doping in orange juice.
Oh, what's the quote?
Are you aware of his comment that he made regarding the safety of EPO and equating it to drinking orange juice?
We'd have to see the comment.
Okay. Are you aware of a comment by Dr. Ferrari that if you're not caught, it's not doping?
No.
Okay. That is him, isn't it? Is that life size? Have you ever seen public comments from Dr. Ferrari about the use of EPO and doping?
I mean, I think that the comment you're trying to refer to is with regards to the orange juice we've seen. I'd like to see the full quote.
I'll show you the article in a second. Let me ask you something else about Greg LeMond and Ferrari. Do you know if Greg LeMond knew before he made those public comments whether you were using Dr. Ferrari for training?
I have no idea. If he reads cycling magazines, he would have known.
I mean, you've never told him that prior to...
We didn't talk. I didn't know Greg that well.
Okay. Look, if you will, in the front of the binder there, tab 10. Tab 10 is an article from the USA Today dated in July 2004. And it carries over several pages. Now, Dr. Ferrari was convicted, was he not?
Yeah.
And
whatever you call that over there.
Okay. And then you severed your relationship with him based upon that conviction. Is that true?
True. No, we suspended it. Yeah.
Suspended it. But did you use Dr. Ferrari for anything after he was convicted?
Of course not.
Okay. You say you suspended it. Has not been reinstated. Your relationship with Dr. was never reinstated.
No, not till the appeal is finished. But
So
there would be no need to consult with him now.
Of course. But, for example, for the 2005 Tour de France, you had no contact with Dr. Ferrari.
Of course not.
Okay. All right. We're going to tab 10. This is an article in USA Today. I want to turn you're free to read the whole thing. If you'll look at page 2. This is an article about your relationship with Dr. Ferrari. It's the third page. I'm sorry. It says the top page 2 of 5. That's just the bottom part. It says there at the bottom or the middle a paragraph that begins with Carmichael and Armstrong communicate with Ferrari mostly by email. Is that true?
I suppose. I mean, mostly I don't know. There's not a lot of email.
Okay. I mean, only you would know. I mean, do you have email? Did you have email communications with Dr. Ferrari?
Sometimes.
Have you retained those?
No.
Did you have a nickname for Ferrari?
McKelly, his name.
Okay. Did you have any other nickname before?
No.
Did you ever call him or refer to him as Schumi?
Occasionally. I mean, Rolf Schumacher is the driver, so they call. I mean, I'm sorry, Michael Schumacher is Schumi. So it's Ferrari sometimes, but not predominantly McKelly.
Would you refer to him in emails as Schumi to people?
I don't know. Perhaps.
Let me show you what we'll mark as Exhibit 1 to your deposition. I only have one copy, but I'll identify while you look at it, Mr. Harmon. Exhibit 1 is a document that was previously attached to a pleading that we filed in this case. And I'll ask you to take a look at that. My question, Mr. Armstrong, is can you identify that?
Yeah.
Is it an email you sent?
Well, apparently so. So my name on it.
Okay. Do you recognize it? I mean, is this an email you remember sending or typing?
I don't remember, but I'm not saying it's not mine.
Okay. You refer to first of all, who's the email to?
Allison Anderson.
And you refer to Schumi. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a reference to Dr. Ferrari?
No, that would be, yeah.
Okay. And you refer to the test. Do you see that?
Yeah.
What test do you think you're referring to?
A physical test.
Okay. And you say Schumi, even Schumi's pleased. Do you see that?
You can show me psych, yeah.
Yeah, psych. What does that mean?
Pleased.
Okay. And this test is nothing other than the physiological test that you described for us earlier?
Yeah, right here. This VAM test.
Okay. Now, if you'll turn to page 3 of this article in the USA Today, we're finished with Exhibit 1. On page 3 of 5, the 4th paragraph down, this article says Armstrong first acknowledged the relationship with Ferrari in 2001 after newspaper stories brought up the issue at the same time his U.S. Postal Team was under investigation by French prosecution for alleged doping in the 2000 tour. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you disagree with that, that that's not the first time you acknowledged your relationship with Ferrari in 2001?
How could that be when it's been written before?
Okay, so you disagree that it was not the first time you acknowledged your relationship?
Of course not.
You mentioned one article or one magazine that you said you remembered it in, which was Lizette, I think you said?
I said, you asked me who knew. Or who had asked whether or not they write it, I don't know.
Okay. Well, you described
If it's written and I don't, if it's written and I don't make an effort to refute it, also says something.
Okay. Well, you had said that your relationship with Dr. Ferrari was public knowledge. And I've seen Mr. Gorski, who told me he didn't know in 2000. I've seen the USA Today, which says you first acknowledged it in 2001. Mm-hmm. My question is, what's your basis for saying your relationship with Dr. Ferrari was public knowledge prior to the 2001 time period?
Well, I'd been asked about it. I confirmed it. People knew it. People wrote it.
Do you
Other
remember?
than that, I don't know.
Whom do you
We
recall?
didn't take out ads in magazines to announce that he was a consultant. No.
Okay. Whom do you recall being asked about it publicly and confirming your relationship with Dr. Ferrari?
Several other journalists.
Can you think of any of them?
It's not important. It was written. You can find it.
Okay. My question is, can you think of any of them as you sit here today?
I mean, Sam App knew about it. Angelo Zomignon knew about it. Pierre Bergonzi knew about it. Whoever wrote the article for Cycle Sport, which was David Walsh's magazine, knew about it.
Were payments for Ferrari services made by you personally or by the team?
Not by the team. Would have been from me, but I don't remember exactly how this happened. Weren't very
do you remember actually writing checks to Dr. Ferrari, for example, you personally?